Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Ayers, and I am a consultant in the digital studio here at Florida State. And today I wanted to share with you a little bit about some strategies for designing an ePortfolio. First, I want to share a little bit about the digital studio. We are an affiliate of the Reading Writing Center here at FSU, and this semester and in the spring we are fully online, so you can visit us online to make an appointment. It's very easy, just search FSU Digital Studio in Google and you'll find us. We provide a variety of different services. We work with students on digital projects. So where the Reading Writing Center works with students primarily on written and academic papers, we're working with students on projects that are multimedia and multimodal. So we provide both technical knowledge, so we can help you to learn about different software and programs. But we also work with students in developing rhetorical strategies for their digital projects. So we offer project consultation and feedback and guidance on drafts. And then obviously if you're completed with a project and you want some revision strategy assistance, we are more than happy and excited to do that as well. So let's begin by talking about the purpose of an ePortfolio. An ePortfolio has been described as doing two or three primary things. It's a showcase of your work that collects, selects, and reflects on your work or your professional or academic identity. So again, what you're creating here is a collection, selection, and reflection of your work. And this forms a type of showcase of your work. And it's also a representation of you. So you want to make sure that you're keeping this purpose, this ultimate sort of central purpose as the focus when you're making design choices for your website, for your ePortfolio. Let's talk first about some strategies for organizing and navigating your website. So some different things you'll want to keep in mind. When you're organizing an ePortfolio, you want to think both about the large scale and the small scale. So the ePortfolio as a whole, how you want it to be laid out. Do you want your audience to scroll through one large page that has hyperlinks? So that's kind of a scrolling homepage option. Or do you want people to navigate through tabs from page to page in order to be able to access your information? So thinking about your ePortfolio as a whole, how you want the information itself to be laid out, and then also on a smaller scale, the individual pages. So once you've decided, I want this page to feature some of my key projects from this internship, then you want to decide on a small scale, how do you want to organize that information? Do you want it to be visually dynamic, or do you want to center more of your copy? So think a lot about the organization of your project even before you begin creating your website. It's really smart to start thinking about organization even before that. The very first thing that your audience is going to see is your homepage. So this is your first impression. The homepage really sets the tone. So think about your portfolio's purpose. And for this particular project, your portfolio is reflecting on you and your experiences as an intern this year. And so you want to make sure that it's showcasing those experiences. But there's many ways you can do that. You could focus on yourself. You could focus on showcasing you with an About Me section that's sort of prominent on your homepage. Or would you rather your homepage really focus on a certain aspect or various aspects of your work itself? So if so, then your homepage may feature a gallery of some of the things you've accomplished this year with your internship. I also want to emphasize that a homepage is the introduction to your website. So you should treat it as such. The same way that with an academic essay or any other piece of writing, we give a little bit of context and purpose through our introductory paragraph. You want to do that on your homepage. So there should be some text or a video or a visual that gives your audience an explanation of the purpose and content of this particular website. So make sure that you've provided that. And again, remembering that this homepage is going to shape your visitors' understanding of your portfolio. So keep that in mind. Once you've created an awesome homepage, or you have a great concept for a homepage, you then want to start thinking about how your audience is going to move through your site. So for the next few slides, we're going to talk about some different ways that we, as the creators of websites, control and sort of guide our audiences as they move through our website. So the first way that we do this is with the navigation menu, right? So the navigation of your website should really be based on how you'd like people to move through your site. So there's a number of different ways to do this. Like I said, you could adapt more of a scrolling feature, almost like how on Instagram, when you're scrolling through and you're seeing all these different options, and then you get to choose how you engage. You could certainly do it that way. You also, a little bit more common in websites is the sort of model you see below, where you have various different pages that an individual, an audience member can click on to visit different pages and to learn about different things. One thing to note when you are organizing things into pages is to avoid the quote unquote more option. And what this means is as you'll see right here in this image, we have an about, research, teaching, and service tab. In web design programs like Wix and many others, if you try to put too many pages up here, it'll add a more feature. It'll say more ... and have all the rest of your pages listed underneath that. We want to avoid that. And one of the best ways to avoid that is to create a really simple organizational structure for your website that has all of your different pages organized under 3 to 4 main pages. So in this example here, we see our 4 main pages are about, research, teaching, and service. But this person has a lot of other things that they want to include beyond just those 4 pages. So they're utilizing sub-pages. So you'll see here, when we hovered over teaching, it drops down to say tutoring, observation letters, and student evaluations. And then when we hovered over research, there's a whole menu that drops down here to show research in different things. So again, this is just a really helpful way to organize and to include a lot of information in your website without creating a really crowded a menu and navigation, or excuse me, a really crowded navigation menu. All right, so again, we're talking about moving through our site. Another way that you help people to move through your site is with hyperlinks. So hyperlinks are really effective ways to help your audience to move from page to page within your website, and then also to move to outside resources from your website. But it's important to think about a few different things when you're putting hyperlinks in. You want to think about what actual media on your website is hyperlinked. Are you going to hyperlink a set of words, which is a capability in most platforms? Do you want to hyperlink an image or a button? One thing with hyperlinking images is that sometimes it can be unclear to an audience member, unless you've made it explicit, that they need to click on the image to follow the link. So again, you just want to make sure that you're being consistent with this and explicit. I prefer buttons normally. I'm a big fan of those because you can have them neatly say download PDF or learn more, and it's a great way to sort of navigate someone to a new section of your website or to an external source. And that brings me to our next question that we want to think about is, where does the hyperlink go? Is it just taking them to another page of your portfolio, or is it moving them to an outside website or document? As always, one of the big things that we want to think about is keeping people on our website as much as possible. So if you're constantly hyperlinking to resources outside of your website, you run the risk of people leaving. So embedding things as much as possible is also really helpful. So embedding a video or embedding a PDF document, which moves us really nicely into the next thing I want to touch base about, and that is adding documents and images to your site. So when you're adding documents, you want to think about the format that you're adding those in. Again, our big thing here is that we want to make sure that our users are having a really positive experience, that they're not leaving our website all the time to open a new document, that they're not being taken off the browser to open a Word document. So this, our sort of pro tips on adding documents is, do not upload papers as .docs files. Essentially, that's a Word document, any kind of doc file. The reason, because viewers have the ability to download these files, which means a couple of things. One, it's going to open in a platform other than your browser. And two, the files are unstable. They can be changed. If you upload a Word doc to your website, they can be changed. So something to think about and to keep in mind. We highly recommend embedding or linking PDFs. So this keeps visitors on your site, and it ensures that your files are stable so no one can go in and make changes. Also, as I'm sure we've all experienced, that dreaded moment where you open something in a different version of Word, a more updated version, and all your fonts are lost or they look different. It's really important, especially with certain documents, that the style stays exactly the same. And that's what we gain with a PDF. Those files are completely stable. So again, we want to think about embedding or linking PDFs that are going to open in a browser window instead of including documents. Now, let's talk a little bit about some design considerations. So we've talked about the organization and navigation of our site. Those are two very important key factors that you've got to think about. Once you've kind of got an idea of how you want people to navigate and move through your site and how you want to organize things, it's time to start thinking about how you're going to design this. A couple of things to keep in mind. The big thing with design and theme is that we want to remember that everything about your website, including the background, the colors, the font, everything should connect to the site's purpose, content, and audience. These are such important things. You want to make sure that everything that you're doing, even down to the font that you're choosing, is reflecting your purpose and your audience. There are some important design principles that you can consider. This is a very common list of design principles. They call it CARP or CRAP, depending on who you're talking to. But contrast, alignment, repetition, and proximity are all important design principles. Contrast is represented really well down here in this bottom portfolio, where we have this bright pink contrasted against this white, and it creates a really stark difference, right? We can also see it some up here in this green and on a white background. Again, it's creating a really stark color contrast, and it's helping your audience to track with what's happening. Similarly, alignment is a really important thing to consider. Again, we'll look at this bottom portfolio, and they have a great alignment here. Everything is in one line, and you can also see how for the information that is a subcategory, they've indented down here at the bottom. So again, it's very important to think about how you're going to align your different elements. Up here, we see a portfolio that is a little bit tight, right? This text is pretty close to our image. And so this is actually bringing up a question of proximity. So I'm jumping around a bit. But this question of proximity is an important one. If we had a little more space here, it might be easier on the eyes to sort of see that text a little bit better. And then repetition. Repetition is such an important element of design. Each of your pages of your portfolio should not look totally different. You want to use the same colors and fonts to build patterns. And even similarly, using some of the same image styles and concepts throughout your portfolio is going to help to build a consistency and a clear design design concept behind your ePortfolio. All right, so let's move on and talk a little bit about images. Obviously, images are an incredibly important part of a website, right? We all have been on websites that have used images well and ones that haven't. It's really disorienting and kind of off-putting when we go to a website that is just words, right? We recognize that websites, ePortfolios are very visual mediums. So we want to make sure that we are incorporating images, but not just any images, right? These images should serve a purpose. They need to be clear, high quality, and unpixelated. And they also should represent you or your work. So for some of us, that may be easier. We might have created some very visual things for our internship, and so it's very simple to sort of put those into practice. But for some of us, we may have to get a little more creative. You might have to decide on a kind of a visual theme that really connects with you as a person. For example, I really love nature and the outdoors. So on my teaching portfolio, I've incorporated a lot of images of trees and that's kind of a theme that I built in. So very similar color scheme. So the color scheme was very similar across the board, but I also talk a lot about growth and kind of the interconnectedness of the teaching and learning experience. So that idea of a tree with a root system and sort of nature as an interconnected thing, I sort of weave those concepts in, and it becomes a part of my teaching portfolio in that sense. So again, just thinking through what are ways that you can incorporate images that are relevant and that serve a purpose. Something to note, like we said, to make sure that you're using clear, high quality, and pixelated images, you also want to make sure that you're using open source images. So not just going to Google and finding any and all Google search images, but using good sources for open source images. That can include pixabay.com and pexels.com are two really great open source image resources that the DS highly recommends. So you have now gone through, you've thought critically and rhetorically about the navigation of your website, the organization of your website, you've incorporated documents and images, and you've thought through the design, you've pulled everything together, and you're feeling ready. You're ready to send it off. Stop. When you're ready to send it off, you want to stop and you want to ask someone who hasn't seen your site to look through it. This could be a peer from your class, it could be a family member or a friend, or it could be someone in the digital studio. The digital studio loves to meet with individuals when they're done designing a website, and we'll walk through your website and give you really great feedback on this. You can just make an appointment with us to do that. You're going to ask your peer reviewer to do a couple of things. You want them to proofread everything. So asking them to read through all of the text and copy on your website. You want them to triple check all of the links. So any button or hyperlink that you provide, you want to make sure that all of those links are working, that none of them are broken. And then you want to triple check all the content. So is every image intentional? Is every design element intentional? Do you have a contact me page when you don't really need one? Have you updated every aspect of the template? Is there any aspect that maybe doesn't apply for your website? So you want to make sure that you triple check all content. And we provide here some final questions that you may also want to ask as you reflect, and you can even ask your peer reviewer these as well. What does your ePortfolio say about you? Do you have a clear theme? Is there a clear design that you've set into place here? Who's your primary audience and who's your secondary audience? Is that clear based on how you've designed your site? How did that impact your site design? Is your navigation clear? This is one of the most important questions, and it's a question I would certainly ask a peer reviewer. Is your navigation clear? And then finally, are your materials, the papers, images, additional works contextualized? So have you given your audience context, or did you just drag and drop the information into your website without any kind of context or any kind of indicators for your audience? So all these things are important. Now, quickly, before I sort of wrap up, I do want to introduce you all just briefly to a couple of web builder options. There are many that you can use. The DS works a lot with Wix. Wix is a really incredible program, especially for the fact that it's a free program. The free version is very robust. It has many, many options. It has a drag and drop style, so there's a lot of customization options. In fact, very, very many customizations options. It's really fun and experimental, and it's template driven. So you can choose a template, or you can also design a website entirely from scratch as well. Some of the cons to keep in mind, that it is difficult to switch templates once you've started, and like I mentioned before, there's so many options with this site, so it can be a little bit overwhelming if you're a very beginner. This is a brand new thing for you. There can be a bit of a learning curve for a new web designer who's using Wix. Once you get familiar with it, you will love it. I think most people do. It has a lot of capabilities. I highly recommend it. It's what I typically use, and like I said, what we recommend a lot in the digital studio. But I do want to make you all aware of that learning curve. Weebly is another great program that's somewhat similar to Wix. It offers pre-designed layouts and a formal, clean interface. It offers drag and drop elements, but with a bit of a twist. It uses those drag and drop elements on a grid, and essentially that means that you have less control over where you can place things on your website. But the benefit of that is that it keeps you from placing things in a way that isn't aesthetically pleasing. It's going to kind of keep you honest. So it's really good for people who are very new to design and to web design. It's a very simple, straightforward program. You also are able to change the HTML, CSS on this program, and that's really the only way to really, really customize the entire website. Again, one of the cons is the templates and elements are very hard to customize, especially if you don't know HTML. So it's just something to keep in mind, that you'll have less ability to sort of customize your website with Weebly. And then finally, oh, actually I have two more, sorry. So Adobe Portfolio is another one. Again, the pros, it's pre-designed templates and clean layouts. You do have limited customization options with Adobe Portfolio, and it also requires the Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. But if you already have Adobe Creative Cloud, then obviously this is a great option for you. But again, it does have limited customization options, so you want to think through that as well. And then finally, we want to make you aware that FSU actually has an FSU Career Portfolio option. This is an FSU branded portfolio. It's a very easy to use template, and it aligns your skills with experience. And there's actually an annual career portfolio contest that you can enter if you create a portfolio using this platform. But again, one of the cons is limited customization options. So there are so many things that you want to keep in mind when you're creating any portfolio. Thank you all so much for listening and watching this video today. I hope that it's been helpful. I want to emphasize again that the Digital Studio would love to meet with you. If you have any questions at all about what we do and who we are, we would love to meet with you. And yeah, just visit us on FSU's website. Just search FSU Digital Studio, and you'll find all the information you need to make an appointment with us. So again, thanks so much, and good luck designing.